In this video, you'll learn about disfluencies and why they might stop you from speaking English fluently and with confidence. My name's Craig and I'm an English teacher with a special interest in helping you speak as effectively as possible and communicate well in English. In this video, I'll explain exactly what disfluencies are, why we use them, and I suggest you watch until the end of the video because I'll also be giving you some strategies and some techniques that you can use to help you reduce the number of disfluencies you have in your spoken English so that you become a more effective English speaker. So, let's get to it. I've divided this talk into three sections. First of all, what are disfluencies? Secondly, why do we use them when we speak? Not only language learners, but also native speakers. And thirdly, how we can avoid them or reduce the number of disfluencies that we're using. But first of all, what are disfluencies? Well, a disfluency is any interruption in the normal flow of speech. Anything that stops the flow of your language when you're speaking. Now, that's not only your second language that you're learning, English, but also your native language. Native English speakers also have disfluencies, and as I'm speaking to you now, I'm trying really hard not to make any. Let's look at disfluencies more specifically. Here are the 6 main disfluencies in spoken language. The first one, filler words, sometimes called crutch words, and they are the ums, ahs, like, you know, that we use in between words as we're speaking. We're using them as a kind of delay before we say something, you know, like. And we also use them to point forward to indicate something we're going to say in the future, something we're about to say. The second one, false starts. Starting the sentence, starting the same sentence twice or even 3 times. Number 3, repeated words. Do you see what I mean? Next one, silent pauses. Number 5, long vowel sounds. It can be really annoying when you make those vowel sounds long. And number 6, repeated syllables is another disfluency. But why do we have these disfluencies when we speak? Well, it's difficult for our brains to plan what we're going to say and then say it at exactly the same time. Our brains need to catch up with our mouths, and while our mouths are waiting for our brains to think of something, we use disfluencies. Your brain is constantly making decisions on what to say next. We plan, then we speak. Then we plan, then we speak, and that causes us to produce disfluencies. We're thinking, we're communicating our thought process to the listener as we try to change the direction of the conversation or look for the correct word or phrase. Another reason we use disfluencies is to show the listener that we haven't finished speaking yet and that we still have the floor, so to speak. And as you're speaking, you might say something and then or so, also. So you want to keep control of your monologue and stop people coming in and interrupting. Also, these ums and ers show people that we're thinking. I got up this morning at 7 o'clock, I think. No, I think I got up at 7:30 because today is Thursday. So to show I'm thinking, I'm using disfluencies. And as I've mentioned before, native speakers also use disfluencies. Here are those 6 disfluencies on the right here. And on the left, we have the face of a famous podcaster, Mark Maron. Now here in this very short clip I'm going to play, Mark is very anxious, he's very nervous, and try to identify any of these 6 disfluencies as Mark is speaking.
I'm excited, but I don't really know. I would say 99.9, I would say 98% of the time heading into a talk, I'm anxious. I'm nervous. I don't know, what's going to happen. I meditate on how to approach it. How am I going to, what's the through line in my mind? What can I lock into to start the conversation? I don't know these things, and it doesn't and hasn't gotten any better after 1,000, however many episodes.
How many did you identify? I think most of the filler words on this list were in that very short clip. But to be fair, he was speaking about interviewing the ex-president of the United States, Barack Obama, so of course he was very anxious and nervous. But not only Mark, here's another native speaker that has disfluencies, one of my favorite actors. Again, how many disfluencies can you identify?
Well, first of all, I would like to ask you, because you're such a famous actor, how do you do to manage the ego?
For me, I just, I know I'm a pretty simple guy. Ever since I was a young kid, I wanted to act. I started professional acting when I was 15. I've been really lucky to have the chance to have a career. And I don't know, I just have always tried to keep it simple.
Now, I know what you're thinking. If professional podcasters and even Keanu have disfluencies, then why should you be concerned about them? Well, some of you, some English students, often use more disfluencies than normal because English is not your first language. And I've noticed this with students on my conversation courses. If you're learning a second language, you may be searching for vocabulary, translating from your native language to English, maybe double checking some grammar rules in your head. So of course, you'll be using more disfluencies than a native English speaker. And that can be very annoying to the listener if you're overusing disfluencies. As language learners, you might not realize that you have disfluencies and that you're constantly repeating the same filler words or crutch words. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, I had to give a best man speech at a wedding. This is me at the wedding, and this is my friend who gave the speech with me. He's the one wearing the silly glasses. We practiced our speech together before the wedding, and when I'd finished my part, my friend said, "That's good, Craig, that's fine. Now try saying it without every 5 seconds." Because I was saying, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming." And I had no idea I was using so many disfluencies. And in my experience, many of you don't realize you're using disfluencies either. Now, disfluencies shouldn't be confused with discourse markers. What are discourse markers? Well, here are some quite common discourse markers in spoken English. And they change the focus of the conversation. They also change the topic sometimes. They change the speaker's attitude, or they give a response to a comment. So they have many functions, and they are very useful because they mark the discourse and they give the discourse direction. Like a signpost. They're signposting what we say and organizing our speech into segments. But be careful, because, they can be overused, We also use filler words or crutch words that are not single syllable sounds like are, etc. And here are some examples, basically, literally, and like. These words often don't add anything to the meaning of what we're saying, and subconsciously we get into the habit of using them. We overuse them. Here's an example. If you hear someone say, they're literally starving. No, they're not. They're just very hungry. People in African countries may be starving, but you're not. You just are hungry. When I heard what she said, I literally exploded. Or when I saw Keanu Reeves in my local supermarket, I literally died. Did you? Really? You literally died? You seem to be alive now, though. Here's an example of using literally correctly in a context. If you have an asthma attack, maybe it's difficult for you to breathe. You literally can't breathe. So be careful not to overuse some of these disfluencies. So how can you stop these disfluencies, or at least reduce them so that they're not so annoying to the listener? But before I tell you how you can stop these disfluencies, do you need to? Should you try to avoid them? Well, yes, you should. And here are two main reasons. Firstly, they can be annoying, as I said, and they can distract the listener. If you're constantly saying, like, after a while, it's the only thing the listener can hear. And it's very distracting because the listener focuses on the disfluencies and they can't hear the message of what you're saying. Those message words don't come through. All they can hear are the disfluencies. And also, it can dilute your credibility as a professional. If you're a lawyer, if you speak in public, if you work in a team, if you're a manager, if you're at a job interview, you need to sound confident and in control. You should focus on being an effective communicator in your professional lives and avoid these disfluencies if you have them. So how can you do that? Well, first of all, notice that you're doing it. Be mindful. Listen to yourself when you speak. Listen to what you're saying and also how you're saying it. Focus on your delivery. So not only on your pronunciation, your intonation and your stress, but also notice any filler words or crutch words or any other disfluencies that may be in your spoken English. And instead of a disfluency or a filler word or one of those hesitation sounds, leave a pause, leave silence. Just take a breath. And with time of practicing this, your silences will become shorter and shorter and you will become more fluent. So don't be afraid of silence. Pauses are your friend. Have you heard the expression, the dramatic pause? Use it to your advantage. It brings the listener closer to you if you sometimes pause as you're speaking. It helps to keep the listener's attention. But of course, practice is the main thing. Record yourself. Every phone these days has a voice message app or a voice memo app. So open it and take the Disfluency challenge. Can you speak for 60 seconds without, try it and your listeners will thank you. And thank you for listening. If you want to improve your fluency and your self-confidence and be a more effective English speaker, consider joining one of my conversation courses. Go to the website, englishcraig.com, and there you can book a 10-minute Zoom meeting without any obligation, a free Zoom meeting, and I'll give you all the information and tell you which group is best for your level. Thanks for watching, and leave any comments or suggestions in the comment section.